Hi folks, Tim here. Welcome back to Elmendorf Acres. Well, today we are working in the sap house. It is now 3/4 of the way through December. Already, it's amazing. The year is almost over, but we got rid of Old Reliable. You might recognize this behind me here as usually where we have our evaporator. Now I've got this framed out. We're going to be pouring a little bit of a slab for this today. And the weather's finally warm enough to be able to get this done. We've got about 36 hours where it's going to be above freezing, so I want to get this done before it gets real cold again. It's been, actually, I would call it seasonable, but it's been a long time since we've had a winter that started like this. We've already plowed 3 storms in the first 2 weeks of December, which was great. But today we're out here in the sap house, and we are going to pour this slab. As I turn the camera around here, you can see we have this framed out with 2x6s, so it's going to be about a 5.5 inch thick slab. It is 30 inches wide and it's 11 feet long. Now the new evaporator is 2 foot by 8 foot, not 10 foot, 2 foot by 8 foot. So it's a couple feet longer than our prior one, but I wanted just a touch longer, touch wider on each side and a touch longer. That way we have a little bit of room to dial things in, because we do already have a hole in the roof where the prior evaporator stack went through. So you can see that's where our old hole was. That's where the stack went through. So we're limited a little bit to where we can actually put the stack on this new evaporator. I don't want to have to cut another hole in the roof. I don't want to have to reframe things. So even though this is a 12-inch stack, not a 10, we can widen that hole a little bit. Specifically, the stuff cut in the corrugated roofing is wide enough already. We just have to put a different collar on it, but that won't be too bad. Now, if we look here, we framed this out. Like I said, it's 30 inches wide, which is 2.5 feet wide, and basically 11 feet long. I think it might be a touch longer than that. What we did is the last evaporator ended here. We went this way just about 3 inches, just to give us a little bit more wiggle room towards the back in case the stack was centered a little bit differently on the new evaporator. You'll also see we put plastic down. Now, there's lots of arguments. Should we put plastic down? Do we really need to? In my mind, yes, let's put plastic down. It's not expensive, and it'll help it, hopefully help it cure properly without a lot of moisture being sucked out of the bottom. So you see what we've got going on here. This is just old deer fencing that we repurposed, and while it's not actually concrete wire, it'll give us that structural strength that we're looking for in the slab. It's not holding a lot of weight, but the slab makes it really, really nice as far as working around things, and it sets this evaporator so it's really easy to level, right? Before we were leveled up on blocks, you'll see these off to the side here. I had built a little pad with the blocks for the prior evaporator, but that was also slapped together. We didn't have a lot of time to do it. We're trying to update things here a little bit, even though this is, for us, kind of a temporary situation. This will at least allow this whole area where the evaporator sits to have a nice little pad under it. So that's the plan for the day. We've got this prepped. The guys are on their way into Kingston to get concrete. We're just going to do bags. It's not a whole lot. It's if you do 80-pound bags, it says it'll take about 26 of them. Actually, I think it said it would take 23. And we're getting 28. And if you do 60-pound bags, it said it would take 32. We're grabbing 38. I would rather have a little extra concrete. We always have stuff going on with concrete, so it's nice to have a little bit kicking around. But I also don't want to find out halfway through the project, or 3/4 of the way through the project, that, hey, we should have bought 3 or 4 more bags. So concrete's pretty cheap when you buy it by the bag, and that's what we're doing with this. Again, it's nice out today. I've got the International out. You might hear that running in the background. I'm getting ready to go get some salt sand mix because we've got a rainstorm coming in later today and tomorrow. It's supposed to be almost 50 degrees overnight tonight. And then tomorrow afternoon, the north wind is supposed to come in, and it's just supposed to absolutely plummet. And as you can see behind me, we've got snow on the ground. That is something really, really unusual in December for us anymore. It's been a long time since we've had actual snow that has been around for a while in December. Now, this snow has been on the ground since December 2nd. It is now had to look at my phone quick. It is now the 18th of December. So we've had snow on the ground for about 2.5 weeks, which is wonderful. It's also a little bit unusual for us. with the way the weather's been for the last few years. So this has been a much more traditional type winter, which in my mind is great. Like I said, we've already plowed snow 3 times this year, twice for the full list, and then once was a modified list. We only had about 2 inches, but we had to deal with our private roads, our commercial contracts, and any driveway that is difficult for access. So if oil trucks need to go up, service techs, things like that, especially these hill driveways around here, they really like to see a bare driveway. So we made sure those driveways were clear for them. So stay tuned. We're going to go to a time lapse now of the concrete. The guys are going to be doing that. I'm going to be running some salt sand mix, like I said, but the guys are going to be mixing, and we're just doing simple mix it in a wheelbarrow type thing. We could have rented that little snout mixer, which is pretty cool, but I didn't feel it was needed for this, not with the small amount of bags that we're doing. And my buddy's got a little electric concrete mixer, but at this point, just the few bags that we're doing, we're going to do it in a wheelbarrow. So that's what's coming up. All right, well, it's been a couple days since the guys poured the concrete, and this has had a few days to set up. Not exactly perfect. It's not, we weren't looking for anything perfect. We were looking for nice and level so that we can set the evaporator on it. So let's pop these couple form boards off and see how it looks. So we leveled this out front to back, side to side. Looks like it came out nice. We did put plastic on the bottom. Wanted to make sure all the moisture didn't run out of the bottom, so we did that. And we poured this just a tad longer than we needed. We needed 122 inches. We poured it about 132 or 134 inches. A couple inches longer in the back and a few inches, well, more than a few inches longer down here. So the end of the evaporator should sit right about here, and that'll give us just a little bit of a lip. It also allows us to adjust things forward and backwards a little bit, because this evaporator is a little bit different than the one we had before. It's a Lapierre, and we had a leader arch before. So I'm not sure exactly how it's going to sit, but it's always easier to get these things set up when you have a pad that's perfectly level. Any moisture that you see is just because I had a tarp sitting on it. Help keep things a little bit warm. They're screeding this way, so we got some overflow here. That popped off pretty good. Oh, it looks pretty nice. Pop this guy off here. All right, let's pick these boards up and take a better look at this slab. And you might notice what we did is we actually didn't cut these two sideboards down. We could have cut them down a little bit, but if possible, I like to leave the board full length. That way I've got a 12-foot board laying around if I need it. Alrighty, those are out of the way. Let's just pull this out so we can see things a little better here. And we just leveled them up simply with a few pieces of plywood. I had some junky plywood left over from a job somewhere. One of those things where, you know, you keep stuff, you think you'll use it someday. You may not, who knows. Great. Plywood's cleaned up. I'm going to chuck this in the garbage. Alrighty, well there we have it. The slab is complete. We are ready to bring in our evaporator. Again, we upgraded. Kind of went bigger. Definitely went bigger. We had a leader arch, a 2x6 arch, which they say it's 2x6. That's really how big your pans are. So once you add the little bit in the front with the door and the back for the stack, it ends up being a lot closer to like 7.5 feet. You can actually measure, each one's a little bit different, but the 2x6 is the pan size, not the actual footprint of the arch. So our new setup is a 2x8. So we went up to Shaver Hill, that's where it's sitting right now, measured it side to side, it's I think 24.5 inches. So we made this 30 inches wide. That way we can adjust each way a little bit. And that gives us a couple inches of wiggle room on each side. Actually, right around 3 inches of wiggle room either way. And it is 8 feet long. But that's how long the pans are. The pans are 8 feet long. It's got a 5-foot sap pan and a 3-foot syrup pan. So our total pan is 8 feet long. But the actual length of the arch itself is 122 inches. Which is 10 foot too. So we poured this slab just a hair over 11 feet. And as I was saying before, the reason we did that is I've already got a hole in the ceiling and I want to make sure that we can adjust this evaporator base or the arch enough to make sure everything lines up exactly where we want it. But this was poured on Thursday. It came out real nice. I'm happy with it. The idea with pouring it on Thursday is we actually had about 36-hour period above freezing. So this was able to cure up nice during that. It was a total of, well, you know what? I have to look at the notes. But it was a total, if my memory serves correct, of 34.5 bags, 60-pound bags of concrete. So we had purchased 38. There are 3.5 left, so we're going to go with 34.5 60-pound bags of concrete to pour this. We put some deer fencing in it, which is, instead of rebar, it's small. Figure we didn't need the rebar, didn't need to buy the rebar, but I had this deer fencing left over from a job where there was a little 20-foot section left. So we cut that up, laid that in, and actually put the plastic in first. Then we cut the wire mesh up, laid that in. And as they were going, they lifted that up a little bit. That way that's in the middle of the slab more, not just the bottom. But this is step one of the new evaporator setup. The old evaporator left a couple weeks ago, and hopefully over the next couple days, I'll be able to make my way up to Shaver Hill to pick up our new one. So thank you for watching. Have a great day.